So when we introduce ourselves, we're going to say who we are and one sentence that brings us here. And I'll start. My name is Diamond Tay Brown. I'm a teacher. I work at Booker T Middle School. I teach 8th grade English. I'm a part of the Black Teacher Retention and Recruitment Working Group. And I am here tonight as a facilitator and a member of the working group and as a Black teacher, if you didn't notice. So we're going to go to my left.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tavon Lawrence. I'm the site director for the Baltimore City Teaching Residency. I am here tonight because I think it's important for all teacher pipelines to be a part of this conversation as we move forward.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Tracy Foles. I am currently the coordinator of the Parent Teacher Program. I have been teaching for 29 years, and I am here because I want to make sure that we continue to have people working for the district who are vested in what's going to happen 30 minutes from now.
Cool. Next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Brown. I am a special ed paraprofessional for 18 years, and I am currently in high school, and I love it. So, and as Ms. Tracy said, I'm here for the long haul to get people to the experience of teaching as well.
Miss Machado is going to go
Wait,
last.
so I'll go ahead. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's our special guest.
Machado.
Machado.
Yes, ma'am.
Did I say it right?
That's
Machado.
Machado.
Yes. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sherelle James. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Teachers in Baltimore. Prior to this, I worked with Baltimore City Public Schools for 22 years. And so I am here tonight because, like my counterpart for BCTR, I want to directly be a part of not just the conversation, but the actionable steps to recruiting and retaining more Black teachers for our students in Baltimore.
Sorry, y'all. Long day of work. Anthony Pena. I'm one of the managers of school operations. I'm the chief of schools office, and I'm part of the task force as well for Black teacher recruitment.
Hi, I'm Natalia Backus. I work with Teachers Democracy Project. But before that, I was a teacher in Baltimore City for 5 years, and I'm also part of the core working group looking at exit interviews for teachers who have left and interviews and surveys for teachers who are still here and how can we retain them.
Hi everyone, I'm Shawn Robertson Barnes. I coordinate the mentoring program for Baltimore City Schools. I've been with our district for 18 years, first as a teacher and as a coach, and then now in my current position. And I am here because I want to be a part of making action commitments happen in our district, and I want to see more great teachers retained.
Good evening, everyone. I am Danielle Butler-Neal. I am a city schools employee. I work with the Castle, new partnership with Castle. I've been with the district for 17 years. Was a former teacher. I am also on the core team of the Black Teacher Retention Group. I also work on the subgroup of teacher mentoring. One reason I am here is because I am passionate about teacher retention. I think it's something that's highly needed with city schools and also Black teachers, so that way we can recruit and retain more teachers. So very excited about this one.
My name's Jay Gillen. I've been teaching Baltimore City kids since 1987, and I'm currently working at the Waxter Children's Center Detention Center for Young Women. I have done a lot of work with the Baltimore Algebra Project, so that's what I'm interested in.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Dunn. I'm currently a grad student at MICA in the social design program, and I'm here because I'm beginning my thesis work, and I'm really interested in learning more about Baltimore City Public Schools, and through that research I've learned about the challenges with teacher retention and recruitment, and I really just wanted to learn more about what's going on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Patricia Young, Associate Professor at UMBC. I teach in both elementary and secondary programs there. I'm here to see what type of synergies we could create with UMBC. It's a long time coming.
My name is Rebecca. I'm with Teachers Democracy Project, and we're an education advocacy group, and we've been really excited about this work and have been part of incubating this work on the core team.
Okay, so some new people trickled in. Can you start, please?
Sure. My name's Crystal Lindsay. I'm the Executive Director of Green Street Academy. I was a teacher for 10 years, a principal for 7 years, and this is my first year as Executive Director, but we are interested in starting a teacher pipeline program that I've been talking to the district about through CTE. So I wanted to come to see what the work that has already been done and the people involved. So I'm here to kind of have a listening ear as I begin to partner with different colleges close to our school.
Do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Lisa Kalicia. I'm the Dean of Curriculum Instruction here at Arundel, and I'm just in tiptoeing to hear. We have a listening ear as well on what's going on with the teacher position.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Buller. I'm a researcher and also outreach specialist, and right now I'm working on the research group in this work group, and I'm also working on a website to connect activism among teachers and also thought leaders and community groups that are working just to improve schools in Baltimore and also beyond. But I'll be trying to show my face in a lot of meetings and get as much familiarity as I can with all the work that everyone in this room and beyond is doing to improve schools here.
New people at the back table.
No, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Drew Longer. I'm the manager of Human Capital Strategy at Baltimore City Schools.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Noelle Gay. I am the manager of school operations and support for Baltimore City Public Schools. I've been in city schools for over 12 years, but I also have experience in Chicago, Brooklyn, New York, and New Orleans, Louisiana, where I was a school leader for several years. So just a lot of work and just kind of interested in seeing where the district is going with this particular topic and subject.
Hi, my name is Sarah Deal. I'm the Executive Director of Recruitment and Staffing with the Office of Human Capital in Baltimore City Public Schools. I've been in the Office of Human Capital for almost 7 years. And of course, I'm interested in seeing how we can better recruit and retain teachers of color.
Hi, my name is Christina Duncan Evans. I'm a school librarian here in Baltimore City Public Schools. And I'm also on the steering committee of Be More.
Ms. Machado.
I am Rochelle Machado, principal of Arundel. Welcome. I have been with the district for 17 years. This is my 6th year as principal, my only principalship here at Arundel. And I'm here to just pretty much see where the district is going as far as the strategy of retaining and recruiting African American teachers, and just to kind of get some more strategies and what we can use to actually recruit for our school.
So if you're new and you came in, we have community agreements up here. Oh, Jay.
Sorry, I didn't know if there were any others over here. I'm Jeremy Grenskin, the Chief Human Capital Officer, and I'm excited because those of us, many of whom are in the room who launched this work last spring, thought about where we could add as a working group unique value, and we identified thinking about how we can help paraeducators become teachers and how we can help our students become teachers. So knowing that recruitment more broadly is a really big topic, I'm excited specifically about thinking through how we can do those two things.
I'm sorry, Chief.
I had background music for my introduction.
So, sir, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. How y'all doing? I'm Mr. Barksdale. I'm the Dean of Culture and Climate here.
I've been working in Baltimore City Public Schools since 2006. Did I miss anything?
No. So back to the PSA. If you didn't get an agenda or a community agreement, please come and get one because we're about to review the community agreement. You got one. And if you didn't know it, it's food in the bag, so help yourself whenever you like, and drinks back there. So we're going to go over a little background and goals about our Black Teacher Recruitment and Retention Work Group. So if you don't know, we have been working over the past 6 months now to come up with strategies to increase Black teachers, the retention of Black teachers, and the recruitment of Black teachers in Baltimore City Public Schools. This entire group is about the retention and recruitment of Black teachers, but tonight we're going to focus specifically on a parent-to-student pipeline and a parent-to-teacher pipeline and a student-to-teacher pipeline, or a student-to-para-to-teacher, because they might be a little bit little, right? So tonight's goal is to first of all understand the history of paras going to teachers or not, reasons why, and the same for what is our history on actually cultivating our own students and making them teachers, and what supports have we been putting in place or not. So we need to talk about these things so that we can explore the possibilities of what that could look like or what we want it to look like. So we're going to have a couple of presentations. We're going to talk about the history and our current efforts. Tracy is going to describe the history of the pipeline and our current efforts. She's going to take about 5 minutes to do that. And she's also going to answer your questions after she does that. Maybe. Maybe.
So the paper that Sarah and I are passing out is just a brief overview of the history of the parent-to-teacher program, specifically in Baltimore City Public Schools, and the student-to-teacher pipeline, which is really the student-to-para-to-teacher program, as she said. So I am definitely not one to read for everyone, but what I would prefer that we do is just take a look over this yourselves, and then I'll answer any questions and give you a little bit more background on it. So just take about 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll go through that. And then I have some people who will address specific components of both programs. The problem that we are having with teachers of color in the district is that they're very sadly underrepresented. We have a district that is about 80%, actually 70, almost 79% students of color, but the number of teachers is less than 45%. So, a lot of research shows that students respond better to people who not only look like them, but who can understand different things. And it's not to say that if you are not a teacher of color that you can't understand things. But one thing that I always use as an example, it's different if you are a parent, a Black parent, and you have a fear that when you go outside, something may happen to your kids. It's different if you don't really experience that. And unfortunately, I know that I do. That is just a reality for where we are. So sometimes when you make connections and you can relate to things, the struggles that kids face, that they're facing with their parents, that really makes a deep connection with the students, and they respond better. It's not to say that Black teachers hold some kind of magic wand. Please understand, I wish that I did have a magic wand that could just say, if you have a Black teacher, you're going to be ready for Harvard. That's not what this messaging is about. Okay? So the history of the parent-to-teacher program, this is more of a renaissance of the program, which was actually started in the 1970s, and those teachers actually were teaching for 30 and 40 years. So this is not a new program. It was revamped to be more current in 2005 with Dr. Johnson putting those things in the PSRP contract to say that we need to have more paraprofessionals in the classrooms, because we all recognize that a lot of times in classrooms, paraprofessionals are support, and they do a lot of actual teaching in the classroom. They do a lot of actual teaching, thank you, in the classroom. And, you know, many of them, going back to the original 2005 cohort, a lot of teachers were in the program, doing well in school. One of the barriers that they experienced was the certification assessment, which is the praxis, which is not unique to Baltimore City. It is nationwide. Many people don't know that there are other methods of certification other than the praxis. We don't really get a lot of, that doesn't really get a lot of attention, but part of what is going on with the work that I do is trying to help PSRP members, including school secretaries, do what they have to do to maintain or to achieve their certification. So, is there anyone who has a question about the parent-to-teacher program, the origins of that?
Did it end in 2012?
Yes, it did. 2012, it ended because of funding, not because of a lack of participation. Like a lot of great things, if you don't have any money, the programs can't continue. So what I am doing is actually trying to get funding to restart the program. So that's the actual work that I do right now. Okay? Yeah.
Who were the funders?
Baltimore City. Baltimore City Schools actually paid 100% of the tuition for all of the parents that were in the program. Okay? Yeah.
So I was actually in the program.
Did you call me?
I don't know if I called you, but I spoke with Miss Buchanan. Bohannon? Gotcha, Miss Bohannon. In 2011, I believe. Okay. And I thought that the program ended because students weren't able to pass the praxis. So I wasn't sure what happened, but it ended for me.
No, but if you call me and I'll give you my information, I'll set you up.
No, I'm done with it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I went on my own, but I thought the program was a great opportunity. I'm just sharing that I was actually a part of the program for about a semester and a half, maybe. Okay. And then, like you said, it actually ended, but I just wasn't sure exactly why it ended.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you know, I'm new to this work, but I know why it ended. So we're trying to make sure that the problems that existed from the last go-around don't reemerge. Okay, but it didn't have, the praxis issue was a part of it, but it's not why the program actually stopped. Okay? Yeah?
Can you give us a sense of how many paras became teachers through the program?
Actually, I wish that I could. There were less than 10. And the reason that I can't give you a specific number is because I don't have data for 2 specific years. I don't have all of the data for all of the participants and the number of people who actually were teachers. So I sent that to Jeremy, the data that I did have. But it wasn't, there weren't a lot. And part of that problem with why they did not become teachers was because of the praxis. So we have a lot of paras who would be one of the cohorts who actually have degrees. Some of them have master's degrees, but they had to change their degree. They had to change their major because they could not continue with education. Because if you don't pass the praxis, you can't take the methods courses. So they took a lot of education courses, and then they had to change it so that they would be able to graduate. And then some of them went on to take the other education courses as a part of a master's program, but they are still not certified teachers because of the praxis. Okay. Yeah.
So just anecdotally, speaking with someone who completed the program in the 2004 to 2012 cycle, from her memory, and I know that these are unofficial but rough numbers, she remembers starting with a cohort of 35, and based on her knowledge of the cohort, she graduated with one other person in that cohort. So to her, in her knowledge and observation, 2 people finished.
I know one for sure was at James Johnson because she was a para when I was there.
Yeah, that number is not correct. But yes, I mean, she would only be able to speak for her experience, but that is not correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. This is not a question, just adding to this that I mean, I've also heard from Dr. Johnson with the BTU that we have a principal, at least a principal in this district who actually became a teacher originally through the Parent-to-Teacher program. So there are individual examples where the program was really successful.
Yes.
I do think that this working group hopefully could expand what the options that we consider to help paraeducators become teachers. I think reinvigorating a program very much like what was in place is a good idea, and there are other things that we might also talk about that would help us get more paraeducators to become teachers.
Before we have more questions, I would like to have Kia describe her experience in the para program, Kia, please, and then you can ask more questions because maybe her experience will bring up more questions.
Okay, let me start by introducing myself again. Again, my name is Kia Brown. I've been in special ed para for 18 years, and I was involved in a cohort that they did the second time around, which was I guess you want to say millennials, but it was in 2005. I was dedicated, went to class, everything was great. We met off-site. We didn't meet at Coppin State because that was the only college that was doing our program. And again, they cut it. But I'm a firm believer that everybody deserves second chances. And because we had, in my cohort, a little more than maybe 5 girls. It was a bunch of us, but 5 who went on because they passed the praxis. Me, I was one of the ones who didn't. So my goal is to finish and make a difference where I can make a difference inside of the classroom. Even though I think it's a greater advantage to me to become a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I just love what I do. I love my kids. They're like mine. And with any program, it did have its struggles. Anything that's, that can reboot can have its struggles. And it did. Because they wouldn't let me finish because I did not pass the praxis, it was heartbreaking to me. Because I'm like, I was dedicated to this program. I wanted to finish. I had already had 1 degree, and I wanted to finish up my 2nd degree. And they cut it. So again, and I said, and I believe everybody deserves a second chance. So that's why I'm a part of this cohort now, to finish what I can do, to give to my students, because my students deserve me and I deserve them. So I think it's very important for this. And some people enjoy being a para, and some do want to make that transition. And I think if they want to make that transition, this program is perfect because I've been with my kids for 18 years. I'm too old to do anything else. I'm too old, so I'm going to stay where I am because I love it. And my kids love me, so, that's my goal to finish. And I think this program, before when I was first in a program in 2005, it was 100% funded. And I was like, this is like working for the military. Because they pay for your education. Why wouldn't I take advantage of that? And a lot of us did. We took advantage of, it being 100. But they cut it. So, again, I'm going to try it. And I think, because even though it is like we do have to pay a little something.
That's right. The proposal
is that we pay.
Funded.
Yeah,
there's a specific reason for that. But.
Right. So, again, I think this is just going to work for people and parents who are invested in their kids for so many years, who relate to their children. As myself, I think it's very important.
So there's a cohort currently. Is that what y'all saying?
Not quite.
Well, we haven't started classes yet.
Well, why don't you tell them how you and I met?
So how we met is through the program, and I'm working on passing the praxis test now. So Miss Tracy has been trying to help me, but I just had, it wasn't, because I've been with Baltimore City so long, I didn't receive an email. It was through word of mouth, unfortunately. And that's another thing. I think once it gets out there, I think it'll reach more people once we get it, started. Because it reached people before, so I don't see why I can't do it now and be successful.
So before you have questions for Kia, what I do along with 4 of my friends, we offer practice prep for reading, writing, and math. It's free. The problem is just getting people to attend, but we saw that was a need. So all of my teacher friends and I, we volunteer our time. We try to make it personal. I'm pretty good at what I do. I can't.
In the pitfall, I must say, Miss Tracy is like in it to win it. She is just like all in it. She, you see it on the table. She has 2 cell phones and she's in it to win it. So, and I'm with her as long as she's with me, and we're with each other to make this program work. So, I want it to work so I can, be sitting where a lot of you guys are right now. So, yeah.
So the floor is open for questions for Kia.
Yeah.
You don't mind?
Any questions? No,
No.
not
Okay.
Kia.
Anybody have questions for Kia?
So do most paras already have a bachelor's degree?
I don't know about most. The ones that have responded to me, it is not most. There have been over 107 who actually responded to me, which is a dismal number given the number of PSRP members within the district. But of that, there are only about 40 who actually have a bachelor's and or a master's degree. Some of them do have an AA, and some of them want to start from scratch, just from the beginning.
Yes.
When you got to the point where you were taking the praxis, did you feel like the instructors of the courses you've been taking and everything had given you the sense? Did you have the sense at that point like you should have been prepared based on kind of expectations that everybody had going in
to the program or
to the like once you were in the program already and you were taking the praxis?
Well, I can say from my experience that taking college courses really doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't prepare you for the test.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. While I've taken it twice, wasn't very successful. But, like I said, my goal is to get there to where I need to be to pass the test. Because you can't run from it. And a lot of paras, that's the goal. Even with teachers, they cannot pass the test. And my mom, she's a retired principal. She's been doing this all her life as well. And she said a lot of her successful teachers couldn't pass the test. Like her best teachers, because they were on a provisional thing or something like that, could not pass, but they were her best teachers. And not saying the teachers who have passed the praxis aren't good teachers, but they weren't as good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but I would say that school really doesn't prepare you. It's just like anything. It's just like when you're you just got to go get it for yourself to see what can help you, because the test is hard. And everybody has taken some kind of test. It's hard. And you have to prepare yourself. You have to take it. So I'm going to try again in January. So, yeah.
So I was just asking because I wasn't clear if they
But we're doing
that.
math right now, Tracy and I, but you have the English, you have the writing, then you have your content. See, my content is special ed, because I'm a special ed parent. I've been a special ed parent for 100 years now. So, but my one degree is in early childhood. But I'm a switch over. That's later. But yeah, so it's all about, you have to, they have all kinds of information for the praxis, but I think it's how you have to find the niche that works for you. Because you're looking at that clock up there, and it's that can just throw you off. But you have to go find what's best works for you. That's all I'm saying. That's the best way I can put it.
You have a question, Becky?
Yes, sir.
Mine's a two-parter. First, thank you for sharing your experience.
Sure.
The first question you might have already answered, which is, how many people were in your cohort?
Oh my goodness. I want to say it started out like 30.
30-ish? Okay, so that's probably typical to
30, yes. And we were all, and mostly females, mostly women, we were dedicated. And then they just said, shoot. Oh.
And, I know this wasn't your experience, but did anyone else in your cohort mention like any of the sort of non-praxis issues that were hindering, if that's like scheduling courses or having the time?
No, that's the one thing. With us, because we were working, we were full-time working, they put the classes sometimes off-site off of Coppin State University. So they made it convenient for us as far as travel and scheduled our classes accordingly because, you know, we're moms, we work. So that wasn't an issue. Yeah, that wasn't an issue. But I liked having classes off campus or on campus. It really, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so before we get into even more questions.
I just had one. So teachers in the cohort were working towards a master's degree?
No,
or they were working
bachelor's.
towards certification?
AA and then a bachelor's degree. So in order for them to become certified, they had to pass the test for certification.
Okay, so successful completion of the cohort would have meant first an AA, then a bachelor's, then passing the praxis?
Not necessarily. Some of them already had an AA, but a bachelor's and then passing of the praxis.
Okay, so a combination of course,work and passing the praxis is what you were working towards.
Yes. Can I say one thing? A lot of teachers had to become parents because they could not pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
They had to, take that big chunk of money, that they were getting to become a parent because they couldn't pass it, so they had to become parents.
Sir, you wanted to say something? Then we're going to transition into what a pipeline could be and then ask even more questions. So, Charlamagne, if you'd like to be the first one to ask questions.
And I can come around with posters for our parking lot so we can make sure we get back to those questions.
Okay, thank you.
So just real quick, when I went into the program, though, I was a grad para, meaning I had a bachelor's degree, and then I started at Coppin as a grad para, and I was told that I had to pass the praxis before I could even get into the program, and I passed praxis 1 to get into the program, and like I said, it was going along. It was a great program. The people at Coppin actually helped me a lot. They gave a lot of support. So that's one of the things that, if the program does continue, I would definitely continue to support and have like a liaison at a college, like Miss Jerry. I always forget how to say her last name. Bohannon, yeah. So Miss Jerry was very helpful at Coppin, and she kind of pushed me. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Especially because you're a black male, and those are very few and far between in our district. So.
Right, and when it canceled, I kind of continued on my own based off the momentum that I gained from the program. So
we want to keep that moving going.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to make a transition to talk about what a pipeline could be for para to teacher. And Ms. Lorraine Brown is going to, of BCCC, is going to speak for about 5 minutes and talk about what that looks like. And then you can ask even more questions. So, Ms. Brown, can you introduce yourself and then say whatever you'd like to share, please?
I don't know if any of my students are here, because usually when I come here, my students say, "That's Professor Brown. I finally see what she looks like." But I sound like this. First, I want to say hello to all the people from paraprofessional teachers way back when I started out. A little history about the paraprofessional program at Baltimore City Community College. That kind of folded in due to financial reasons with billing. And what apparently happened was people, if you worked for Baltimore City Public School System and we were at an event, if you showed us you worked there, you could register for classes. And people kept their badges. and they didn't work for Baltimore City Public School System. And they took classes. And so the bill became astronomical. And at that point, we had Dr. Alonzo, and we had other people, Baltimore City and the state of Maryland, is saying, we want to get paid. And Dr. Alonzo is saying, we don't have this many paraprofessionals in our school. We're not paying. So things start crumbling, unfortunately. But it was a good program. We're back, stronger than ever. I run the program. I just want to say one thing because she kind of gave me that quirk. You know, somebody say something, get a quirk. She said that college does not prepare you to take a test.
No.
That kind of gave me that quirk. So let me explain why I got that little twitch. You prepare yourself to take the test. We give you everything, all the ammunition to pass it. The teachers that my adjuncts and the other faculty members are certified. They're not just adjuncts from anywhere. So they went through, I'm an old bird, I went through the NTEs. You guys have no idea, right? What's an NTE? That's the National Teachers Exam, where we had to take a test on every subject. Science, social studies, math, English. We had to go across the board. So when we heard about praxis for you guys, we said, wow, they got it easy. But the thing is, it's not easy unless you're taught a certain way to pass them. There's a method in reading the questions. And if you're not familiar with how to read the questions, then you can't get a correct answer. And so there's a little twist in there, and we teach you that at BCCC through our math, through our language arts, history, English, writing, you name it, we have it. What we don't have is praxis preparation. So we join in with BTU when they run something for math. But we don't have that piece because we feel that if you take an English course and you're taking writing, then you take a praxis. You can write a paragraph, you know how to write a thesis, you know how to write supporting details to that thesis, you know sentence structure. You're going to know that in English. So it's just a matter of refreshing yourself, relaxing, and a hint to passing the praxis. They want to know what the real hint is? You got to say you're good. You got to go in there with the attitude, I'm good. You can't go in there with the attitude that you hear is very hard, I can't make it, I can't pass it, all these people failing. You have to really go in and know that you're good at what you do and do it well. So what we're doing again is we're bringing back the paraprofessionals in a different way. You're taking the same courses. You don't have to be in a cohort. I give you the freedom to do what you need to do and help you get through. And then from there you get your associate's degree. We have connections now with Coppin, Towson, Loyola, Notre Dame, most of the four-year colleges. So any classes you take, they automatically go right in. But you have to pass your praxis exam in order to get into a four-year school, the basic one. Otherwise, you go into their school as a general study. So that's why we work hard to make sure that you pass your praxis. You don't want to I don't look at her face. The other thing is we had Teach America. Anybody can teach it? This is not Teach America. No. Because we had Teach America students, they passed their praxis exams. So I know they did. You can do it too. Special education. Special education is a journey. You have to have a content area. I don't know if you're aware of that. People say, I want to be a special educator. A special educator in what? It's not generic anymore. So you're going to be a special educator in English, a special educator in math. You need a content area to focus on. And the praxis is getting ready to change. In case nobody told you, let me be the first. The praxis test is not going to just ask you questions any longer. It's going to do that and ask you how to apply it in situations. So it's going to switch over to case studies. so that you take the knowledge and be able to implement that knowledge with what's happening in the classroom. So not just multiple choice questions, it's applications. So I'm sorry, I'm so winded. Forgive me, I was driving Russian. So we prepare you for what you need to succeed. I can tell you that I worked in Baltimore City Public School System. Let me see my scar. Let's see my scars. Baltimore City Public School System for 17 years. And then I worked as an administrator on Norfolk Avenue for almost 10 years. And then I went back and became an inclusion specialist. And then I became a professor. And now I'm a professor and coordinator. I believe in what I do because I was in the trenches. And I'm just not a person who's trying to make money. Okay, if I was, I'd stay. I came from Wall Street and I changed my whole life. This is a second career. So when I tell you that I do understand, when you come to talk to us, you're talking to people that understand, who's been where you are, who's been in the classroom. There's no story that you could possibly give me that happened in a classroom that I wouldn't understand. How the good it is, how the bad. So we're prepared to take teachers and paraprofessionals and help groom you to be the teacher that you want to be. I want to see you be the best teachers because the students need you.
Ms. Brown, do you mind taking questions?
I can take as many questions they want to get, as long as y'all can bear with the throat.
Okay. If you all have questions for Ms. Brown, feel free. Charlamagne, you wanted to start, and if you still have a question for Kia, you can ask that too. Okay.
But I do have another question.
Okay. Go.
So I took the Praxis 1 and I took Praxis 2, and I went into taking both of them with the understanding that black people don't do well on the Praxis and it's hard for them. I did not find that to be the case for myself. And I have wondered if a person cannot pass Praxis 1, because that's just general information, then how can that person teach? And I'm just telling the truth. And it's no judgment. I'm trying to put out here some of the things that I know are said. I'm just saying what people think. So I'm saying if this test is that hard for us, and because I've not heard, and I was in the classroom for 15 years, I never heard my white counterparts talking about the Praxis being hard and impossible to pass. And I know people took coaching. It took me, it was either 2 or 3 times to pass Praxis 2 for my content. And the reason I was not passing Praxis 2 is because I was giving them my lofty ideas about education and the writing part, like how I was going to write my lesson plan, and there was all this, stuff. Until at the end of the second or first, I think it was the second time I took it, the white people in the room were having a different conversation about it. I was like, oh, I'm not prepared for this test. They don't want to know my dreams. They just want me to answer these questions and regurgitate. And so the third time I took it, I aced it. So I'm like what Kia was saying, the courses are not going to prepare you for the test. So that was my thing. Like, I was going in there with all my creative ideas that they taught us in our education classes or whatever, and that's not what Praxis 2 wanted. So I don't necessarily know that I have a question, but that's something that I'm wrestling with as a part of this working group. How that makes us feel in buildings when people believe that we are in there as paras or teachers who are not certified because we don't pass the Praxis and the culture that comes with that, and about what people think about our abilities, and then how that affects us. So you keep going back and not doing well on the test, the impact that has on you.
Relating to what you're saying, culture plays a big part. It plays a big part because of language. And I said something to you a little bit earlier, what we work on is that how questions are asked. And questions are asked different ways in different cultures. So you need to learn how to listen or how to read to see what the answer is going to be and not what you think it should be. As you said, in New Jersey, when No Child Left Behind took over, do you know the teachers weren't certified in the state of New Jersey? And do you know for that year that they weren't certified, they had the highest scores in the United States? And none of the teachers were certified. So that tells you something. The other thing is not everybody's good at taking tests. Some people, I've met the most, as she said, I've had dynamite teachers that could teach a rock, teach a rock how to read, but couldn't pass the test. And then I had somebody that could pass the test and couldn't teach a rock. They just, you know, it was like, what do you want? You know? So we at BCC, the teachers, the professors and teachers that are there, we teach the cultural part. The cultural part is to learn how to answer a question that's being asked. You have to analyze it because it's not part of what you do every day. So I just wanted to bring that out. So I don't want people to think if you ever pay. I know somebody took the test 15 times, okay? I mean, people used to spend, because at that point, that's back in the day, you're going to lose your job. You were done. And people were spending money left and right. But the anxiety built up so bad, they couldn't pass the test. So I just wanted to, I don't want to knock people. I don't want people to think because I can't pass the test that it's something with me. It's not. It's because if I spoke to you in Spanish all day and asked you questions in Spanish and she asked you a question in English, you have to interpret that question. And if you don't know how to interpret the question, you can't answer it. So it has nothing really to do with black or white. It really doesn't. It's just culture.
Sir, you're going to ask the last question for this segment, and then we're going to transition into a video. The student to para. Right. Then we're going to transition into student to para, and Tracy is going to start us off with a video, and then we'll open the floor for even more questions. I know people have a lot of questions. Christina passed out Post-its.
I actually couldn't find it.
Didn't pass it. Okay. We can use the back about papers for parking lot questions, and you can give them to Jeremy. We like to say Jeremy's name for just random stuff. Post-its, and give it Jeremy the parking lot Post-its. And we just want to, be certain that we balance these meetings with information and inquisition. So I apologize if you feel cut off, but we will make sure answers are answered in different ways, okay? Sir?
No, I just wanted to kind of piggyback and comment on what you said earlier. I think with Praxis, a couple of things that I've experienced with the teachers I've worked with is Praxis 1 and the new Praxis Core are two totally different tests. And Praxis Core is like really based on Common Core. And if you look at the teachers who are attempting to take Praxis Core at this moment, they've never been taught Common Core. And so like trying to understand like this young lady said, how the questions are being asked on that test is difficult. The other thing is it's my belief that it's also rooted in systemic issues. And so when we're looking at people going in to take the Praxis assessment, have they been adequately set up to pass based on their educational experience? And so for people of color in certain districts and certain systems, that answer is no, they haven't been set up. Whereas other, people from more affluent neighborhoods or what have you may have been.
Ms. Brown, Kia, Tracy, you want to respond or have any comments on that?
No, I'm really quickly. For me, as a person who does the practice prep, one of the problems is your focus may be early childhood or elementary, but the practice core is 8th and 9th grade. So that makes a difference just in terms of what you're prepared for. And yes, we all have been through 7th, 8th, 9th grade, but if you did that 10 years ago, I'm not remembering slope interception. I'm just not. And so that is one of the problems. And they already have a phobia going in, just like a lot of our students have phobias now. But that's one of the big differences, I think, between the success rate, especially for elementary and major. I took the Praxis just to see what it was. And like you said, but I'm a math teacher. So it was different. But if that's not where you are, it is a bit challenging. So, okay. So real quickly, with the Student to Para program, and you asked about, there is currently a Teacher Academy of Maryland program. It's one, and it's outlined here. The state of Maryland has 10 career CTE, career technical education programs. There are 10 clusters, and each district has clusters that are unique to their school. So you may see somebody in Garrett County having agriculture. So the clusters are supposed to be preparing you for careers that are appropriate for where you live or what your resources are. So that's what that is. So what I have for you now is a video of 2 students who were in the Teacher Academy of Maryland program at Western. So I'm going to let them talk, and they said, please don't laugh at them. Okay.
So it's coming in now. Switch it over to you.
Hi, I have 2 young ladies here who want to share their experiences with the Teacher Academy of the Maryland program. And they'll start with a brief introduction.
Hi everyone, my name is Deja Adams. I went to Western High School. I graduated in 2016. I'm currently a junior.
My name is Deja Parker. I also went to Western, graduated 2016. I'm a junior in college and I'm an English major.
Okay. So, ladies, why did you choose the Teacher Academy of Maryland program as your course of study at Western?
Well, we had like 3 options. I think it was like technology, something dealing with science, and Teachers Academy. So I think that's suited me because I'm not really good at IT.
So a lack of options.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
That was pretty much my situation. So I didn't know that I didn't have to choose any of the 3 programs. So my mom is a teacher, so I figured.
That's my daughter. I'm sorry. So what were situations that you experienced at Western that may have affected your decision to pursue teaching?
You said experiences at Western?
Yeah, what things happened to make you say, hey, maybe I should go into the Teacher Academy of Maryland?
It really wasn't Western. It was another.
Okay.
I could say the same.
All right. So did you two take the current pro assessment?
Yes.
Both of you passed?
Yes.
How many done? So what did you contribute to you being so successful with the Para-Pro assessment on the first test?
Our Teacher Academy teacher, she was very passionate about her job. She took it very seriously.
She was very strict, but she was really helpful too. She was very encouraging.
So did either of you ever consider using your Para-Pro certificate to help you get a job as a para-professional while you're in college?
Well, like when I first got it, I didn't really want to because I wasn't interested in it. Like after this class, not saying that the class was bad or anything, but now I'm kind of considering it just to try it out, so I can just say that I did it. And yeah.
Thanks, Deja. What about you, Deja?
No.
No. My child said that.
I don't want to use the paraprofessional certification for anything. I'm not really interested in taking that path. I'm an English major with a concentration in communications and media, so I really want to focus more on my concentration instead of English. Well, not more so teaching. I don't want anything to do with the school system.
Is there a reason that you sound a little jaded about becoming a teacher with the Monroe City Public School System?
A little. My mother was a teacher. I mean, she was really passionate about it when she first started, but as the years went on, you could tell that she wasn't as, I won't say she wasn't as passionate, but it just wasn't the same. The kids weren't the same, and I guess they expect too much out of teachers, and that's just not what I wanted to do. I don't want to go into a profession and end up like really hating it.
I don't hate teachers.
Persona of Baltimore City Public Schools because there's always like a high crime rate. The kids are disrespectful. I just feel like the bad things are always like highlighted more than they like kind of overshadow all of the good things that might be happening. And I do feel like teachers that are underpaid and they could feel they feel unappreciated. They just feel unappreciated. They have to do a whole lot of work and just a little bit of pay. They have to deal with the stress on an everyday basis. Bad kids.
So is there anything that could have happened while you two were in high school that would have said, hey, maybe teaching is the career path that I want to take?
I don't really think so.
Okay. So, like right now, you two are high school graduates, well done, and you see these images on the screen with regards to violence that is happening in city schools, especially you nature because you're not in state. How does the things that you and your friends may see while you're at school, how does that shape how people perceive Baltimore City Public Schools, the teachers and the students, and even the communities?
Well, I don't really think anyone's perception of Baltimore really changed. Only because when I first went to school in Delaware, when I told people I was from Baltimore, they were like, oh, you're from Baltimore. So it's, it kind of had like a negative sona to it. So I don't really think it changed anything, but definitely it makes it worse when you see stuff like this. And it happens like, it's happening back to back, so it doesn't make any sense.
What about you, Danger? Anything that is going on that might make people feel a certain way about what is going on in Baltimore City Public Schools?
Yeah, same like with it's always just a big persona. Just not even on the school system, just Baltimore in general. So you fear, sending their kids to Baltimore City Public Schools because of those reasons.
What, if anything, do you think could be done to encourage high school students, or even at the middle school level, to decide that, hey, I want to become a teacher and give back to my community?
You said something that could be done?
Right. What could be done? What could the school system, so this is your chance, you have the mic right now. What would you say to the people who are in the positions of authority to say, hey, this is what we need to do if you want, this is what you should do if you want people from high school to go into teaching as a major?
Right.
I don't think anything done
I think, I think we need more passionate teachers. I had some passionate teachers at Western that really pushed you and really cared, but the rest.
I feel like even with passionate teachers, there's always going to be there's always going to be a few passionate teachers, but there are always teachers who don't really care about the students, and they're overweight for passionate teachers.
Do you two remember how many teachers of color you had while you were at Western? Was the majority of your teachers, were the majority of your teachers teachers of color or no?
No. Filipino teachers.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else that you all want to say about possibly becoming a teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools?
If you're willing to take on everything that comes with it, like if you're ready to be, I feel like in Baltimore City, you have to be a lot more than just an educator. And it's sad, but it's the truth. I think that you have to be like a babysitter, and I mean, it's the truth though. Yeah. Some of the kids are bad, and you wouldn't want to deal with it, but I mean, that comes with being a part of a city teacher. You have to be ready for all
You have
that.
to be very passionate and very relaxed and patient, because it's a lot of work. It's very stressful. You might have some days where you want to quit or you want to give up, but like you just have to think about the outcome. You're helping students, just don't think about it. Not everybody's patient. Yeah. But I commend everybody who has been a teacher for a long time. It's like you.
Absolutely. Anything else, ladies, before we wrap it up?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you. So, and the reason that I had them do that is because they were actually in the Teacher Academy of Maryland program, and I thought who better to say why they did not use they both have the Parapro certificate, which means ideally that they should have been able to go into a school to work as a paraprofessional while going to college and then get their AA degree and ultimately get a bachelor's degree. But the kids are not doing it, and this is really what's going on. And as I have spoken with current students in the Teacher Academy of Maryland program at Western, it's the same thing. It's too much. They always talk about lesson plans like they didn't know teachers have to do lesson plans, and they didn't realize exactly what goes in it. I think the Teacher Academy program does give a good example, real life examples of what it takes to be a teacher, but our kids are just not buying into that whole process, and I'm not sure how to get them to change their frame of mind.
Yeah. So before we get into questions, I have to do some housekeeping. We have 40 minutes left. We need to get into our small groups, and we also need to report out. So I'm going to allow. I know, and we have. That's what we're about to do now. So I'm going to take one question right now from someone that hasn't asked a question. So Christina, if you could ask yours after Jay speaks. Have you had an opportunity to ask a question?
No, I was just.
So can you ask your question?
So my question was around branding in city schools. So I wonder, after meeting with the CTE office, if Western is the only high school in Baltimore City offering a teacher preparation program, does that speak to the way we value teachers? If we're saying we need it, but it's not being offered.
It was.
But I'm saying right now, I just met with CTE last
Right.
week. It's only being offered in one school across the whole city.
Right.
Is there an issue around branding? That's just a wondering.
Okay, so I see several hands, and I'm going to get to you. But after Jay Gillen speaks about the Baltimore Algebra's project for Visions for a Student-to-Teacher Pipeline. And this is important because, as you saw, these ladies did not have a suggestion for a pipeline. And Jay has worked with other youth in the Baltimore Algebra Project that have proposed the vision. And I think that if we want students to join, we need to hear what Jay wants to tell us about what the students have said what they would like to see. And then we'll open it up for 5 minutes of questions. I saw Natalia. I saw you, I believe. Okay. I saw Anthony. And then we'll move into our small groups, okay? So, Jay, could you speak for 5 minutes, please?
Sure. Yeah, you can set a timer and
I
just
do
stop.
every single time.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Jay Gillen. I can't really speak for the Baltimore Algebra Project. It's a youth organization, so you should scratch that out. You should just put, this is Jay's view. But it does come from experience that I've had working with Algebra Project students for 20 years. The Algebra Project pays young people, it's a student-run organization, pays young people to teach math to their peers and also to facilitate youth leadership development and youth advocacy peer-to-peer. They pay real wages. So over the past 15 years, Algebra Project students have earned $4 million exchanging knowledge with their peers. Half of that's come from foundation money, half of it's come from contracts with the city school system, with the State Department of Education, with the Family League, and other folks that fund after-school activities. Some older Algebra Project students actually work as co-teachers in math classrooms. The best 4 years of my teaching career were at Heritage High School, where I had 4 Algebra Project co-teachers. 3 had graduated from Baltimore City Schools. 1 had dropped out of Baltimore City Schools, was a marvelous math teacher. And so this is a picture that we try to give people, that all of the teachers that Baltimore City needs are already in the schools. There are students there right now. We don't need to go anywhere else. We don't need to look anywhere else. We have to figure out what's getting in the way of those people, A, teaching right now while they're in the school, and B, continuing to teach after they get out of school. And so the problems are very complex and very interlocked for why this is so difficult. And people have been raising a lot of the problems now, and the young women on the video were raising many of the problems. And so if we're going to address this problem, we really have to analyze it deeply. It isn't just a question of how do we recruit people from outside of Baltimore to come in and give their years of their lives to our children. It's not just a question of how do we set up a program that says we'd like you to become a teacher, so come on and do that. There's a lot of other things. So one of the things is understanding that young people like to do things together, that they're really suspicious of older people, and they trust each other, and so they're willing to work with each other more readily than they're willing to work with people who are much older than them. Another issue is that poverty in Baltimore is real. And so young people in high school need to earn money one way or another in order to survive and to stay engaged in educational activities. So they need to get paid. They need to be working with each other. And another thing is that young people know whether something's culturally relevant or not immediately. It isn't. They don't need to be trained about what's culturally relevant and what's not. They know what's culturally relevant, not only what's culturally relevant, but what's age relevant to their own youth culture. So my 5 minutes are probably almost up. There's a ton more to be said about this, but I think the main issue is we really have to deepen the conversation. It should not only be about recruitment and retention. It should be about what do the young people currently in the schools actually need so that they can begin teaching today, right away. Because that group of young people are going to become teachers. And we've got 1,000 Algebra Project alumni who would love to be working in schools. We got to get the barriers out of the way. Praxis is a huge barrier. It's a barrier because we have a colonial system of education where somebody from outside of Baltimore City tells us what credentials you to teach within Baltimore City. Instead, people in Baltimore City schools, the young people, the teachers, their parents, community members, we should be the ones saying, and in the context of this discussion, black people should be the people saying what credentials you to teach in a Baltimore City school. And that's what we should use as the credentialing mechanism Praxis is a colonial system imposed from outside, and I don't know how we're really going to address this unless we start talking about those type of deep political questions.
Thank you, Jay. You summed that up very well. And my staff is Christina, Natalia, Anthony.
So I have a comment and a question. One of the comments that I have is that we should remember that we exist in a context where for a lot of colleges, education majors, people who go into education majors, that's down 2/3 across the board. And so while we need to stay race specific, right, and talk about the challenges of blackness and the opportunities of being in Baltimore City, we need to also be aware of that wider context. And then my question for the young women is, do they know anyone from their Western Teaching Academy and Maryland classes that majored in education?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know if that's like a large number or a tiny number?
Well, for their class, there are actually 3 that they know, which is still a relatively small number, but they know of 3. Cool. 3. And McDaniel, 2 go to McDaniel, 1 goes to Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering for the students in the video, for the Western program, what experience do they get teaching, like in elementary? Do they go to like an elementary or middle school?
Yes,
and
they
what's
actually
that like?
had 2. One was with Medfield, which is right down the street from Western, and then they did another in-school experience, which they just thought was terrible because they said that the children were, the other females at the school were too close to their age to really take them seriously. Mm-hmm. They had a much better experience at Medfield. But yes, and Medfield had a grant with the Curry Murray Nature Center to help those students from the Teacher Academy program teach science. So Curry Murray worked with Medfield teachers and Mrs. Davis at Western for that. But that grant is no longer funded.
Pena is not in the room. Does anyone want to take his spot? Anyone has a question, especially people that haven't spoken yet?
I'll say, I have a comment. And to me, it's just maybe perhaps something to explore, to look a little bit deeper into. As a principal in New Orleans, I did not have, obviously, or maybe not obviously to you all, but I did not have a problem with recruiting or retaining people of color for my schools. It actually is a cultural, and I think to Jay's point, to your point, it actually is like a cultural urgency to actually have Black men and African American females and just have everyone actually be a part of the education system there. But what I realized was that in RSD, which was the Recovery School District, which now is the Unified School District, because they just went back to like having like the district actually become one, and no longer, they used to be 90% chartered, but now they're one unified district now, with traditional schools run by the district and charter schools all under one operator now. But however, those teachers that I hired were not required to take the praxis because they were at 90% charter. So the oversight operator, we didn't have all these LEA kind of like restrictions. But what we did have was an extremely like a very tight, for lack of a better word, very like scrubbed, thorough hiring process, which required folks to really be hired for fit and performance. So high fit, high performance, not necessarily if you pass the test or not. Mm-hmm. So culturally, it was just necessary for you to understand the city, the student, the child, the community, and along with content, yes. But it was more about your ability to actually take the content, dissect it, and then deliver it to a student in a way that they could understand the content. So when we hired, and when I went through the hiring process, which was probably the most rigorous and draining process I've ever gone through, hiring teachers and recruiting teachers, but it was the most rewarding thing at the end of the day because I was hiring for fit and performance. I was not hiring because you qualify based on Louisiana's LDOE standards and et cetera, et cetera. So we actually were able to find people who were actually were more dedicated to the work and being able to actually get those things done. And then we were actually able to use more money to create incentives, staying after school longer. You're talking about a school day that starts at 7:05 and doesn't end until 4:05. So but no one really kind of complained about it because we also built in like mental health services. We had a lot of like positive incentives for the staff. If you could ever think about never-ending, exciting things to do in New Orleans, there was always something to do, like in the city. But there was always an influx of people who wanted to be a part of the education system and wanted to support the students in the city. And they knew, everyone is aware there, that they need people that look like them to be able to relate to them. And it actually, we used to have a lot of pushback. And this is not to anybody, to anyone here, because I'm not TFL, I'm actually with the BCTR. But they actually was a lot of pushback for a lot of transplant teachers that came to that city. And they were saying, we don't really want you to come here for 2 years and leave us. We want people who are going to be here to stay here, to teach our children, and we want our children, our people in this community to stay here and be here, and so that we can have a shift in how we educate children and the longevity of it. So I would be interested in kind of seeing just sort of in other cities, Brooklyn as well. I feel like having people of color in other urban cities that I've worked in, Chicago, Brooklyn, and New Orleans, and Baltimore, back again now, it never seemed as like a really big barrier. And I'm not sure, and I think like the culture is like the shift in the need of it and the sense of urgency. I'm not sure if Baltimore has really tapped into it as well as other cities may have, and I'm not sure, this is my first conversation here, but it just is almost interesting to me where other cities, we don't even have a problem. It's almost like we don't want you, we want to teach. We want to teach our own children because we know that this is that important and it's that urgent.
So that was a great segue into our small groups. So I'm about to give you all 3-step directions, okay? So first of all, so don't move till you get all 3 steps. First of all, you're going to break up into groups of 3. Secondly, you're going to go over these questions that you see under small groups. What opportunities and barriers did you hear? What strategies would you like to see? And what questions do you have that need to be considered in realizing these pipelines? Which team would like to start?
We shall start. 18.
Fair. Y'all got the floor, ladies.
All right. Following in with the bullets, we saw opportunities.
Oh, and what is this for? Parent to teacher or student to teacher?
Student to teacher.
Okay.
So questions we were considering were solution we were looking at was capitalizing on the success of people that have actually gone through the TAM program, and we have one right here in real life. But looking at people who have successfully gone through that, and speaking back to what you were saying about the youth, if we were able to brand it in a way that the success stories and have videos and share them on YouTube and put them in through social media tracks of where they are living and breathing on their phones, there's a place there where they start to see other people their age from their community having success in this track and being able to achieve that success and bring this back to their community and still become a teacher and be successful and enjoy it and appreciate it. So that was one solution we're thinking for branding in that way. We also were looking at the algebra project, the graduates, where are they now? That was a question we had. And how could we capitalize on those students who are still living and breathing and still maybe in that realm of being interested in education? And then for passing the praxis, which was the barrier, we also were thinking about structurally for programmatic cohorts. So depending on how many people are in that cohort to pass the praxis, you have 2 tracks. So you can put it in strands of, there's a group that's doing certification and they pass. They're in certification mode. What are their next steps built in right for them right away? Because we heard in both your stories that a lot of you had to figure it out on your own and you didn't know about certain things. So how do we advertise and make sure that it's clear from A to Z what happens when you pass, what happens when you don't pass? And if you don't pass, there's a proactive track for that, so a differentiated track with support to pass that. Since BTU already has something in place, using things that are already existing within the district to help support people in order to get the praxis. We all have said over and over tonight, people have problems passing the praxis. So if we put something in place that's proactive to support that we know that's going to happen, okay, you didn't pass, here's our next step, immediately, boom, so you don't get lost into this rabbit hole of what do I do now?
Okay, thank you, ladies. Next group, if you guys have more
Brevity.
solutions, put it in the parking lot. Who's going next? Which group?
Where are our snaps?
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy.
Who's next?
Sure, we can share.
Okay, I'm listening.
Do you want
Is
to
it parent, teacher, or student?
I was going to repeat what you said. Can you?
Go ahead. Let me see if you're listening.
Okay.
Parent and teacher or student to teacher?
We were talking about parent to teacher towards the end, so I'm going to sum that up because I remember it the best. And the problem was also
She said para.
a para, yeah.
I know.
And
I'm still finishing up another book.
the problem, we were also talking about praxis at the end, and someone brought up a solution of having a paid, more like paid positions within the district that are for praxis prep, so that it's not falling all on volunteer work. And then another thing that came up was an idea to have more student teachers from programs like Coppin who come into the schools around Baltimore to teach, so that they're getting experience in the schools and getting familiar with the schools. And also it was brought up that maybe that would help some of the students make connections to younger student teachers and see that as a route that they could take if they're able to connect and see that that's a path that seems more accessible or interesting.
We talked about student to teacher.
Okay.
Honestly, I only took 2 notes from what we talked about. So one was we talked a little about the fact that within IHEs, it is hard to recruit people into teacher preparation programs.
What's an IHE?
In a college or university.
Okay.
So we talked about how the district might partner with those universities to recruit their own students into their teacher preparation programs instead of other majors. And we also talked about, which I think maybe there's something in Kerwin about this, but pursuing a state commitment to pay college costs for students who commit to becoming a teacher.
Branding, we think goes under both. Branding goes under either on both of those.
So you're saying branding is a problem or the solution?
A problem and a solution.
The problem in rebranding would be a potential solution, I think.
Yes, the solution would be rebranding. Another thing we're talking about, like the colleges we are connected to. Props to BCC, is it? And we picked them up, and Coppin, and especially Coppin, since you started as a teacher's college, but also wondering if it would be more attractive to people if they were connected to other universities. And we were just talking about in some other states where teachers are in programs that are connected to what are considered the better college. I'm not crapping on any of them, but I'm just saying you might be more excited if you thought, oh, I'm going to end up with a degree from Morgan, Bowie, Towson, whatever. So that could be a solution to expand our network of colleges that we are working through. And we need a healing for teachers. There's a problem there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but branding in that one.
Can you say more about healing?
I mean, the 2 young ladies, if I'm correct, I taught at Western. I had some students in that program. They were in that program for 4 years.
2 years.
2 years?
3 years. They started in Tisco.
3 years. And you were in this program for 3 years, and you leave with that mindset. One, I'm glad they don't want to teach, because that's a mindset that we wouldn't want to have to work to undo. But 2, how do we address that? How do we address that mindset when you're in a program and you're not, and it's not encouraging you to go that way. I will say that knowing that there are children in CTE programs who don't end up with their certification in some of the CTE programs that they're in, or that they don't even use their certification that they did acquire. So I'll say that having that knowledge that this isn't like all kids use their certifications that they acquire once they get them, but I do wonder. I just loved teaching.
Can you write that wonder on the poster for the parking lot?
That was my
All right, y'all go, because we got 3 minutes left.
The main barrier we talked about was testing. I think that is a little bit more of a parent-teacher strategy or concern, but I think it also definitely it will affect the student-teacher pipeline. And so we talked a little bit about redefining what teacher prep looks like and creating local definitions of qualifications. Related to that is the idea of what peer review could look like for qualifications and certification, with the caveat that like the more local you get, sometimes the more like human character failures and politics can become an issue. On the other end of the spectrum, we talked about diversity within the test creation process and really pushing for national tests, ETS, to really respond to the fact that they use language in a way that does not fairly or accurately address multiple cultures. So we talked a little bit about a national solution, a super national standardized solution, and a little bit about a hyper-local solution.
Okay, so you can read our problems and solutions yourselves. This is what we're going to do next. The core team is going to take these problems and solutions back to our core team meeting, and we're going to choose which ones we think that, we should represent, or we're going to figure out how we can represent an actual plan to get from the problem to get to the solution, okay? And then we'll present that back. Maybe we'll choose like 3 solutions and create a more extensive plan on what that solution looks like. And then we'll bring it back to the public to get your feedback, and then we'll go from there.